Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Rachel Hiles. Good morning.
Good morning.
And so Rachel and I have something in common, and so we both are taking care of grandparents, but she's done a little bit more with hers than I did with mine, as far as really educating and talking about it. And so we're going to talk about the granddaughter's journey. Rachel Hiles on love, legacy, and caregiving. And so tell us a little bit about what caring for your grandmother was like.
Well, I always like to joke around that I had a specific date when I became my grandma's caregiver, but as with most people, I think I started noticing changes and started helping her before it became official. I took care of my grandma for over 7 years. Grandma had Alzheimer's and a lot of other things. But fortunately, I was able to support grandma to live in her own home independently up until the very end of my caregiving mission with her, which was right before COVID. So she, she and I both were only children. We didn't have any living family. So all my help came from outside sources. Most of them were paid. So it really was a lot, for the most part, just the two of us, so to speak.
So what'd you learn? What were the biggest lessons you learned doing this?
Well, so, I think, gosh, there are so many lessons. With grandma, I had to survive myself. I had to, rally the troops, so to speak. And it was not easy because, like I just mentioned, we didn't have any family or, close connections. So it was really important to draw on support from the outside. Eventually, we ended up hiring help, which we called them Barbara's sidekicks. And it was because really, in the world of care, especially at the end of life, people are doing a lot for you. They're helping you and almost taking over the reins. But since my grandma was still independent, it was very important to me that her sidekicks, empowered her to stay independent and engaged and active as much as possible. But really, when it came down to it, that part of caregiving, managing her sidekicks or caregivers or whatever, really was like managing a business. It's a little different because, of course, you have your loved one, and everything is revolved around them. And it should be. That's person-centered care. But I think when it comes to especially managing caregivers, and this is something I hear a lot, even today, in my new chapter. We all have our expectations of how things should be done, and what we want for our loved ones. And I think a lot of times we're looking for perfection, and checking all the boxes. Me and myself and my grandma as well, we were both very particular ladies. We wanted things done a certain way. But I think, when we're dealing with humans, we're dealing also with complexity. Everybody's coming to the table with their different experiences and values and perspectives. And so you have to, have, your policies and procedures, as an employer, but also you have to be flexible. And that flexibility also just carries over into your normal caregiving life. At the end of the day, I think we find ourselves feeling guilty because we didn't, accomplish this, or we didn't accomplish that, or things just weren't the way we expected. But I think I wouldn't say lowering your expectations necessarily, but changing them, and being a little bit more graceful and forgiving to yourself, because caregiving requires a lot of energy, of compassion, and it's just a lot.
So what made you decide to start the website, takingcareofgrandma.com?
Sure. So back in those days, when I launched takingcareofgrandma.com, honestly, I looked around, just like you said. I don't hear a lot about people taking care of their grandparents. Well, me neither, honestly. And the other thing that I wasn't seeing much of is young people like myself, because back in those days, I wasn't even 30 years old when I started taking care of my grandma. And I looked around, and I see people who are caring for their folks. I see older people caring for older loved ones, but there was nobody like me, a quote unquote millennial. Uh, and there still aren't so many, but there will be more. I think right now it's about 1 in 4, but honestly, it's kind of a twofold thing. I wanted to share my experience in real time. Also, it was like a chronicle for myself personally, but also I really wanted to inspire and motivate those who came after me, because I wanted them to see that it is possible. It is possible to care for your loved one, to accomplish your goals, to keep your own identity, and survive caregiving when it's all over. And for me, what that really meant was, avoiding. Trust me, there were plenty. Avoiding the gory, heartbreaking moments of caregiving, and complaining about it. We hear so many things that are so negative about it. And I didn't want to portray that at all, because I truly loved taking care of my grandma. I learned a lot, during that time, and I wanted to share it, just as practical advice, but also, like I said, as an inspiration. And I, since I didn't have much help other than what I was able to, bring in and pay, I figured I, could be a good example for others. If I could do it dang near all by myself, then so can other people. So that was really my motivation.
So how did you balance your personal and professional life being a full-time caregiver? And what kind of advice would you give others?
Well, honestly, that's a loaded question. I think a lot of people, a lot of us who are caregiving or have been caregivers, struggle with that. I'm no exception. I had another person that I was responsible for. I was his legal guardian, and it kind of all came to a head in the middle of taking care of grandma. He was released from the hospital on hospice, and up until that point, I was working full time, and I had grandma. I was going back and forth from work every day to see grandma. Come back home, go to bed, do it all over again every day. And I did, like I said, I had a little bit of help, but that was mainly so that I could have peace of mind at work. And somebody wasn't calling me, trying to figure out how to work the remote, or things like that. But when all these crazy things started happening, and I was feeling totally overwhelmed, I was looking at my plate. I always tell people, I looked at my plate. I see, I have Calvin, I have grandma, I have this career. I also have my own life. I have all these things. This full-time job is the easiest thing for me to take off my plate. And why is because, we all have skills, and things that we're able to do. And I think it's just up to you to decide what your priorities are. But for me, my priority was to take care of my loved ones. And my job, my career is, graphic and web design. And I figured I can make a way of that, while I'm taking care of them. And it ended up working out pretty good. I'm not going to lie, but I know that it's always a hard deal, launching a business, but I would encourage people, to think about all the things they could do to make money, and make a list. I had an escape plan, really, for my old job, because I was like, the day may come where I have to leave this place because I'm too stressed out and I can't handle it anymore. So what are all the things that I could do to earn a living for myself? And I guess if worse comes to worse, I'll just move in with grandma, which actually ended up happening, but not for that reason, to be honest. But balancing personal and professional life is a struggle. It doesn't matter whether you're a caregiver or not. I think it's just a matter of prioritizing yourself. And even if you can't go on a vacation for a week or whatever, looking for opportunities every day to give yourself joy, and experience peace, I think is very important.
So you talked a lot about aging in place, and so and I think a lot of our seniors want to age in place. That's what's going to make, them happy. So what's your perspective on practical steps that families can take to make that a reality for their loved ones?
So yes, I am unabashedly aging in place. Quite frankly, I think and I hate to keep bringing it back to my example, but if I could do it, anybody can. I think the most important thing is starting before your loved one needs help. Start having those conversations and being aware of their wishes, and starting to make a plan and building your team. Because it might happen that your loved one is living in a 2 or 3 story house, and that's not going to work for them. And it will be much better to, if a change in setting was needed, to do that before those needs start increasing. The bottom line is, if you wait until your loved one starts needing help, it's too late. And I know it doesn't happen overnight, at least not most of the time. So we can pivot and make changes as needed. But I think, first and foremost, above all things, is being on the same page with your loved one about what they want. When it comes to care at the end of their life, I know there's a scary kind of terminology, but it's the truth. And educating yourself about what's out there. There are amazing tools and technology that can help somebody be independent. With grandma, we didn't have too much technology. We had a lift chair that solved a lot of problems. And I also had cameras. That was, I'm not even gonna lie, like one of the single most factors that kept her as independent as long as she was, because I was able to keep an eye on her, and still keep my own place, and also keep her safe, because I had some characters show up from time to time, and I could chase them off. But also, especially when it comes to somebody who has cognitive impairment or dementia, something like that, things become more difficult for them, like operating the phone. There will be times where, My grandma accidentally turned her phone off at night, and in the morning, I was always her wake up call. I was her wake up call every day, and that was obviously a twofold thing. One was, I was waking her up, but also I was able to check on her and make sure she was okay. It was like a wellness check. Because I will tell you, there was not one day that was going to pass where I did not check on my grandma and make contact. And that's something else that's really important. I think, that should be the number one priority is, putting eyes somehow and ears on your loved one, and just keeping their wellness on at the forefront of your mind. But I'm digressing a little bit. There are lots of tools. My grandma had a lift recliner that saved us a lot. We used cameras. She also had a bed rail. It was just a simple little thing on Amazon. You could buy it. I don't know, it was like probably $30 or $40. And it slips between the mattress and the box springs and has a little rail. And, lots of people have trouble getting in and out of bed or up and out of their chairs. And those reduce a lot of falls for us. And falling is probably one of the major issues when it comes to getting older. Having these conversations is not easy. There are a couple tools I really like. I wanted to mention them specifically. One is there's AARP has a Prepare to Care guide, and it walks you through all the different aspects of caring for your loved one, and helps you make a plan for that. There's also the financial workbook for caregivers. And those two things are critical because, money is a very uncomfortable topic. But what I'll tell you is money is at the heart of most of the decisions that you're going to make when it comes to caring for your loved one. So when you talk about aging in place, I think that's probably the most important thing. Like I said, talk about it. Get clear on the financial picture because that's going to, steer all the decisions that end up being made. So those are the steps I would take.
Well, those are really great advice. So real quick, now that grandma's passed, how do you think it shaped your perspective on aging, family, and purpose?
Sure. So that's a rough one because I'm still young. Even if I didn't believe it, I have people telling me all the time, well, you're still really young. Although, I think life, oh my gosh, having lost everybody close to me, I know I'm still young, but I feel kind of old. Something to watch people leave their physical body on this earth, I guess I would say when it comes to aging, first of all, like it's very important to enjoy your life, in the moment, because time flies. It really does. Like we're talking about taking care of my grandma. My grandma's been gone 3 years now, but it seems like it's just yesterday or last year. It's so weird. Time is a vacuum. So it's really important to monopolize on that because you just never know how much time you have left. My mom passed away in the middle of taking care of my grandma. She was here one day and gone the next, suddenly just gone. So it's that brings me to, family. Our families, I know we don't all have great relationships with our family members, but our family, whoever that is to us, those moments are precious and sacred. They're, things that you'll never get back. Even, memories fade. So again, enjoying your life in the moment, but especially when you're with your loved ones, enjoying that time. And as far as purpose, these days, I'm not so active on takingcareofgrandma.com anymore. just because, obviously grandma's gone now, and I love talking about grandma, and I loved taking care of grandma, but I also miss her very dearly. She was a huge part of my life, and that being said, these days, I have my business. I left the workforce, so to speak, to care for my grandma. And I still have my business, but around that time, I also founded a nonprofit here I'm in Kansas City, by the way. It's called Sandwiched KC, and it's specifically for family caregivers. We started out meeting virtually because I'm a millennial, and I didn't really feel comfortable driving across town to meet with a bunch of strangers. And even if I did, at the end of the day, I was taking care of grandma. I didn't have the energy for all that. So we started meeting virtually once a month, but now we meet twice a week. And we have an annual conference. So, I guess I would say, even though I'm not blogging on taking care of grandma.com anymore, or too much, or anyway, I think my purpose is to support people who are caring for a loved one, so that they are not feeling alone, because it's very easy to feel isolated and lonely, and just I don't know. I remember one day driving home from meeting with somebody I know, actually, who's helping a loved one. And I kind of just had this feeling come over me, like I could give my life to this cause. And so that's what I'm doing now.
Perfect. So Rachel, so if people want to get in touch with you, or they can want to read more about your journey, they do that at takingcareofgrandma.com, right?
Yes, visit me at takingcareofgrandma.com. There's something for everybody at takingcareofgrandma.com, even taking care of grandma wrap. So,
well, there you go. All right, girl, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. We look forward to having you on again soon, possibly talking about your other nonprofit.
Okay, well, I would love that. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcasts as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.